Hello everybody, we're here today, you're watching Irikoze on YouTube, and we're here today to talk about David Coffin, who you see there, and Scott Davis, who you see there, and also the dishonest nature of Megan Bruton, who you saw there. This is a wholly circumstantial case that hinges on the fact that Megan manipulated the situation, and Scott may very well be innocent. So we're going to go over some of those things here today and in videos to come. Alright folks, we're here today talking again about Scott Davis. Some of you may have seen the drive time video I did just a few days ago. Me and my lovely assistant, Susie Q. And at the end of that video, you heard me talking about Detective Walker, the co-lead detective in the case. So, today, we're going to show you his affidavit, right? Okay. Just so everybody knows that I'm not just talking out of my ass here. He actually did sign an affidavit. You're going to see it today, and so that you will have no semblance of doubt as to whether or not he has, in fact told on everybody that there was 2 tapes. The reason why that's important is because the fact that there was 2 tapes and he's now confirming that fact means that the other co-lead detective, Chambers, and the Fulton County DA's office are stone cold liars. You can't believe a word they say because they've now been caught in a lie. They can't wiggle out of it. Okay? They can't wiggle out of this. First, the experts determined they could hear a second tape on the tape that was turned in. Right? They agreed they could hear one being ejected from another machine. Now, we have the other co-lead detective in the case signing the affidavit saying that he indeed turned over 2 tapes. Not only just 2 tapes, folks. 2 transcripts as well. 2 transcripts. So that's 4 items. That's 2 items that disappeared that for the last 20 years everybody's been saying don't exist. Well, at least one of them doesn't exist. One set of transcripts and 1 tape doesn't exist. We now have the proof. Now, we're not just going to sit here and talk about his affidavit, though. No. No, we're not doing that. We are going to take it further. We're going to examine the words of Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard today and something he said about the case once. So, but before we get to Paul Howard, let's go ahead and do our little bit of homework first. And let's go ahead and take a look at the affidavit from Detective Walker. And we'll all be absolutely certain of the fact that there was 2 tapes, that there's no denying it, and then we can move on to the embarrassing part of this for Mr. Paul Howard. My name is Marshall Walker, and I am a 25-plus year veteran detective at the Atlanta, Georgia Police Department. During the course of my employment with the Atlanta Police, I was a homicide detective assigned to the David Coffin Jr. murder case at approximately midnight on December 10th, 1996. I was the co-lead detective initially with Detective Rick Chambers. We went to the scene at 951 West Conway Drive in Atlanta, where a badly burned body was found in a house fire. We did the initial investigation there, but were soon called to an address on Battleview Drive in Atlanta, where I met Scott Winfield Davis, the separated husband of Megan Lee Davis, who was a girlfriend of the person we believed just found dead at the West Conway scene. We investigated the crime called in by Mr. Davis at his house. Based on our initial investigation, we told Mr. Davis he needed to come downtown with us to discuss the crimes. A police car took Mr. Davis down to the homicide office on Somerset at around 3 a.m. Mr. Davis was then interviewed by Detective Chambers, and I was called away to another crime. I returned to the homicide office at approximately 4:45 a.m. when Detective Chambers explained to me that Mr. Davis had stated that he had not shot Mr. Coffin. We did not know at the time Mr. Coffin's cause of death because his body had been so burned in the house fire. Mr. Davis stated that his wife Megan called him and told him this information, but she denied knowing how Coffin had died. So, we decided we needed to give Mr. Davis the required Miranda warning and did so initially at 5 a.m. and he signed the warnings. I obtained 2 cassette recorders and 2 tapes and recorded the interview. One was a tabletop regular cassette recorder that was manually operated. The other was a micro cassette recorder. We interviewed Mr. Davis. Both Detective Chambers and I were in and out of the room to investigate the claims by Mr. Davis or to deal with other ongoing cases. I was not in the room for all of the interview. However, one person remained in the room at all times. We interrogated Mr. Davis about the case of detail, but he denied any involvement. Eventually, the interview was completed when Mr. Davis asked for an attorney. We took Mr. Davis back to his home. Eventually, I took both unique tapes to have 2 transcripts typed up by Secretary Alicia Gray, somebody else who can most likely attest to this because she typed up 2 transcripts. Eventually, once the case against Mr. Davis proceeded, I turned the 2 tapes of the Scott Davis interview, 1 regular cassette, 1 micro cassette, and 2 transcripts into Fulton County Assistant Attorney Joe Burford. Okay, so there you have it, folks. These 2 tapes and a set of transcripts for each tape was turned over to the DA's office. 1 went missing, just like the 72 pieces of evidence. So what do you? Okay, so keep in mind now, before we get to the matter of Detective Walker and the interrogation tapes. Sorry. Keep in mind, 72 pieces of evidence were lost in this case. Much of it was lost pretty much in the 1 to 2 years leading up to the trial. Okay? Which was 9 years after the incident, by the way, right? So a lion's share of that 72 pieces was lost pretty much in the 1 or 2 years leading up to the trial. 72 pieces of evidence. You got the forensic examiner who did the examination of the gun and all that stuff. She admitted to falsifying reports. You have the phone records that now prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was Megan that passed the information about David being shot to Scott. The phone records now prove it. It's undeniable. And you have all these things, and then now you have these interrogation tapes that have now been, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it has now been declared, pretty much. In my opinion, I'm not going to call Detective Walker a liar here. Because what Detective Walker is saying fits the evidence of the experts that analyzed the audio tape and said they heard a second tape back there. And you can hear it. Any of you that are old enough that remember that had, used cassette tapes back in the days, you remember they made a very kind of unique sound when they popped out of the tape deck. When especially those recorder. I mean, you guys remember what those recorder things look like? They had like the big buttons that you would push down, but when you would hit eject, the tape would like pop out of there with like some force, and they were made out of like a hard plastic, and there was like wheels like on it that helped the tape roll better and stuff. So these things would like jiggle and wiggle, and it would just make a very particular noise that's really unique and hard to mistake. So anyways, so then, Detective Walker is coming in saying, yeah, I turned over 2 tapes, which goes along with what the experts are saying. And to be perfectly honest, it proves that there's something wonky going on at the DA's office. They are clearly lying about things, and that makes you wonder about the 72 pieces of evidence. The forensic person that falsified a document about the gun that was supposedly used in this crime or whatever, supposedly. I mean, when you think about when all the things start to add up, folks, and then you get the solid proof right here that agency, the Fulton County DA's office, is lying, along with the lead investigator, who has also been lying about it, and other things. I mean, that guy has told so many different stories on the stand during the course of Scott Davis's legal proceedings. It makes your head spin. The guy cannot keep his story straight. He's constantly changing it. So you add all these things together, right? Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, folks, so that you're just as irate with Mr. Howard as I am, I'm going to show you a little clip. Something he had to say when the TV shows were coming around back in the days when they were covering this case. Because being the fact that Scott was pretty wealthy, his family was pretty well off, and the Coffins are obviously very, very well off. You know, this case got a lot of attention, and it was featured by 2 different, you know, crime shows. Well, this is going to be an excerpt from one of those shows, that something that Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard said. I think you'll find it interesting, so here we go.
Do you feel that Scott Davis got a fair trial?
Without a doubt.
District Attorney Paul Howard insists Davis's rights weren't violated, and any evidence that was lost wasn't bad faith or intentional.
Oh, but we know now that that isn't true. Let's see what else he has to say.
But in a petition in federal court, Shine disputes that, pointing out an evidence room clerk admitted under oath that she lied on an affidavit about receiving the missing murder weapon, and that her superior told her to do so.
Is that not bad faith if someone lies about on an affidavit and admits it under oath?
Jeff, I almost have to laugh when I hear that. The courts have already dealt with that issue.
Well, there, Paul. I think the courts are going to be dealing with this issue again, my friend. Yeah. How are you going to explain the missing evidence tape, Paul? How are you going to dance around that one? Are you going to just laugh again? You're just going to laugh and it's all okay? I love it. Yeah. He can laugh till the cows come home. He, right now, is looking like a disgrace. And I can't wait to see what comes out in the proceedings that in Scott's current appeal right now, because how are you going to deny what the experts are saying, what the co-lead detective is saying? How are you going to deny that? And then how are you going to still be able to make the assumption, as the judge did in this case, that with this proven misconduct, that you can trust that the 72 pieces were lost innocently? How can you do that? How is that even possible? I cannot believe anything from this DA's office at the moment. They've shown me with Chambers and his continually morphing testimony that changes the story, almost every time he testifies. And then now you have, as you see, Paul Howard acting, the district attorney for Fulton County. He's sitting there making fun of it. He thinks it's a laughing matter for him. Wrongfully convicted people are a laughing matter for Paul Howard, obviously. Because now it's proven. You hit a tape, dude. You clearly hit a freaking tape. And the transcripts that went along with it. You clearly you did whatever you did. You destroyed it. You put it in a safe at home. Whatever the hell you did with it, you did something with it. Somebody at that DA's office did something with it. And like I said, it's hard for me to believe that somebody in the DA's office would have stolen it before you got a chance to look at it or any BS like that. Plus, it would have been hard to get it out of there. Transcripts are going to be, probably in a manila folder, something big that people would see. So I can't imagine that would walk away very easily. So anyway, especially when it's coming from Assistant District Attorney Joe Burford at the time. And I believe that made it right to your desk. So ultimately, I hold you, Paul Howard, responsible for what happened. So, and you, being the head of the Fulton County DA's office, makes the entire office suspect. So that's the way that goes, folks. Anyways, just wanted to share everybody my thoughts about the Scott Davis case here today. Paul Howard has bugged me for a very, very long time, and I've been meaning to do this video, but I was waiting for the right information. And thank you very much, Detective Walker. You are a man of integrity, and I applaud you for it. So remember, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.